Chuku local government area. So that will give them, the police, at least an inkling into the nature of the operations along that line.
Well, I don't know. I'm not writing the history of Pojo, but it's something that I just remembered.
Yes.
About how they operated, and which is part of what we have lost. If you were a dealer of Peugeot products or Volkswagen products, you had to have a workshop.
Yes.
And then you had to provide sales and after service. And these dealers, were recognized. It is not now that you have everybody, every mechanic, every small space there, they are selling to Kumbo cars and so on and so forth. So it was organized. Your dealership, you had a franchise for your dealership and so on and so forth. That was how, let me also mention this out of sentiment. We are doing this paper review. Alex Ibru, that's of Rutan Motors, he had a franchise for Peugeot products. And in fact, Rutam House, where the Guardian newspaper is established, was previously one of the offices, sales outlets, and the maintenance workshop for Peugeot products.
And later on became the printing outfit.
Absolutely, and Alex Ibro was in love with the Peugeot.
Can I draw attention to this human interest story? In Rivers State, the police command are looking for a woman who disguised as a lesson teacher and abducted 5 children. Of the 5 children, 3 of them are of one mother and 2 others are from another family. And how did she go about this? She came to the area, begged for a space to start conducting lessons for children. He even paid the husband of the woman whose 2 children she took to help her build a structure where she would be conducting the lessons. Under the guise that he was going to teach the children, he just took the children away and went away to what they call a palm oil market. Before you knew it, she has disappeared with 5 of the children.
Yeah, that's a worrisome development. But we do hope that the authorities are hot on the heels of that female kidnapper. And whenever she is apprehended, she has to face the full wrath of the law. But another story, if you recall...
Can I comment?
Yes, please do that.
About the trust issue we have in Nigeria. Somebody just coming out of the blue, come to a place, get a place, and then we automatically trust the person, and including our children too. Are we being security conscious here?
Certainly not.
Certainly not. Certainly not.
Certainly not.
And you see, people are taking for granted the natural good-naturedness of Nigerians. When you come, oh, you are welcome. The hospitality is what has been taken for granted. But we need to be circumspect now about trusting just anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bayo, if you recall, earlier in the week, I made reference to an advertisement in one of the papers regarding the claim that there was an imminent scarcity of sugar because of some issues with one of the major producers having not met their allocation quota or some other point. The government agency has clarified that is not the case. In fact, they addressed a press conference yesterday debunking the claims in that advertisement, and that everyone, is mandated to proceed, with their production. There's no production scarcity and there's no cutback in the sales of sugar. Because if you recall, last year, the reason why we raised it was that last year, there were claims that artificial scarcity of sugar was created around the Ramadan period. And the purpose, according to that claim, was, of course, to fleece buyers of sugar. Baya Toyobi, on that note, we'd like to thank you for being around. See you again tomorrow. It's Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on NTA's network service. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with climate and weather, particularly for this year.
This is Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA, and as a prompt for our conversation on the 2022 seasonal climate prediction, here is correspondent Musa Ali with a background report.
The 2022 seasonal rain prediction released by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency indicates that earliest onset of the planting season will occur in February in the coastal states, and it's expected to last between 250 to 300 days. In the north-central states, it was predicted that the onset of rainfall will occur between April and May, and eventually between June to July in the northern states. Minister of Aviation Hadi Sirika released the compilation of the seasonal prediction on behalf of NIMET.
The areas around Kwara, Oyo, Lagos, Nasarawa, Benue, Bayelsa, and Rivers, which are likely to experience shorter than normal length of growing season. However, prolonged length of growing season is anticipated in parts of Plateau, Kaduna, Edo, and of course, Imo.
Moderate dry spell for up to 15 days is predicted over parts of Adamawa, Ekiti, Kwara, Niger, FCT, Kaduna, Sokoto, Kebbi, and Gombe states.
The vagaries of weather and climate is not limited only to agriculture. Other socioeconomic sectors have weather and climate as a very critical component. And that is why this document, SCP.
Predictions will not only help the aviation industry, the agri, even the insurance companies. In some parts of the world, you subscribe to the kind of information that is being given free by NIMET. And I hope that we all take seriously the seasonal prediction.
The country is projected to experience warmer days over the north and cooler nights around the south in the month of March. The month of April is forecast to experience warmer daytime temperatures and cooler than long-term average nighttime temperatures.
Thank you very much, Musa Leo, for that backgrounder. We have guests with us in the studios to discuss further aspects relating to the seasonal prediction for 2022. Let's welcome James Adamo Ijampi, who is Chief Meteorologist at NIMET, that is to say the Nigerian Meteorological Agency. Ijampi, pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you so much, sir.
Also here with us in the studios is Engineer Clement Nze. He's Director General of NISA, that's the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, and a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. Engineer, it's a pleasure to have you this morning.
It's my pleasure. Right. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
And also joining us in the studio is Kabir Ibrahim, President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, AFAN. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
He's a regular on the program. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, so let's begin with Ijampi. Let's give us more insight into the climate prediction for the year 2022. We have the highlights already, but in general, what does this mean? Is it early onset or late onset, early cessation or late cessation of rainfall?
Thank you so much. As presented by the Honorable Minister, Senator Hadi Sirika, the prediction this year was based on a El Nino normal phase. That means we will be experiencing a normal to early onset of rainfalls, normal to late cessation, but depending on as specified by the Honorable Minister in his remarks, some states will experience some early cessation, or have areas. Mostly the country will experience normal to late cessation, but with few areas like Plateau that will be experiencing some late cessation. Also, the rainfall amount varies from normal to above normal rainfall, and as highlighted by the minister in his remark, they will be experiencing some dry spell, moderate dry spell, that will last 7 to 15 days in parts of the central states, as he said, and we'll have in the extreme northern states, we may likely experience some severe dry spell that may last up to 21 days after the onset. And it is important to note that there will be some pre-onset activities which is not the onset itself. That means we may experience some rainfall here and there before the actual onset as specified. These are the pre-onset activities, and in the document it has been warned that people should not rush to the farm, mostly our farmers, to go to start planting because it may lead to some economic loss. However, the onset dates are specified clearly there. It will be normal to above to early onset, normal to late cessation, normal to above normal rainfall, and the length of season will be normal to longer than normal length of season across the country.
I'm going to stay with you briefly, and usually your prediction is points on, year in, year out, you know, and this year around, there's some scary prediction, outbreak of meningitis in some states across the country.
Yes, the prediction this year looked at the environmental condition that will be suitable for the outbreak of meningitis and malaria. Now, the condition for malaria, it has been predicted between January to May. You can see where you have high vigilance, low vigilance, and so on. And that means the environment, the rainfall, temperature, and relative humidity will be ideal for the for breeding of Anopheles mosquito, that the parasite, the vector that carries the parasite. And also for meningitis, that the atmospheric condition is suitable for the outbreak. So that's why if you look at the document, we talk about vigilance. So that means these areas in the month of January, you'll be experienced, there should be high vigilance. That means responsible agencies of government and health practitioners should make sure they mobilize their resources to those areas so that to avoid or to avert the outbreak of these diseases. Ours is to predict the environment suitable for based on science, suitable for the outbreak of these health conditions.
Well, I would like you to speak further on the health implications of the climate prediction. But you're talking now about malaria, which is to say the breeding of the female Anopheles mosquito, and meningitis. Which states are more prone to these events, and which of the months of the year will this be more rampant?
Okay, thank you. If you look at the document critically, you see in the month of January, February, and March, the coastal states where you expect the onset of the rainfall, because there's a threshold, you have some amount of rainfall and relative humidity. January, February, we expect some high vigilance within the coastal part and the southern part of the country. As we move into the months of May, April, May, we're looking at the central and the northern state for malaria. And conversely, for meningitis, January, February, the conditions the vigilance will be high in the northern part of the country, particularly the frontal states of Borno, Kebbi, Adamawa, Yobe, Jigawa, and so forth. So, and when you come to March, it will come down to around areas in the central states, and that's when the conditions will be ideal for meningitis.
Okay, let's talk about the new document, Executive Summary for Policymakers, and what is it all about, and how will it assist all the relevant agencies to make informed decisions here?
Yes. Now, this innovation came about because you have the policymakers that don't have to look at very bulky document. And the concept, the DG NIMED, Professor Mansour Bakumatazu, came up with this idea that this should be a policy, simple pamphlet that policymakers can just make reference and take immediate decisions based on the seasonal rain. It's just like a complete summary of the seasonal rainfall prediction, and it is handy. So you find out policymakers, ministers, even the governors can have this, just a little pamphlet, and look at and take immediate decision. This is a new concept introduced by my DG, so as to ease in communication, because when you have a very bulky document, and for policymaker, all he needs to know is that where are the areas of interest, what are we supposed to do, and how do we mobilize resources.
I'm wondering, before we bring in the other guests, what was the level of interest at the launch of this year's climate prediction? In other words, who, say, from the state's governments were present or joined you via Zoom or some other links that you may have provided?
Thank you so much. The participation this year was quite encouraging. We invited all state governors, commissioners of agriculture, environment, health from the states, and all the federal ministers. And we had from the state government, we have physical representation by directors and PAMSECs of agriculture. We had representation by executive secretaries of emergency management agencies, that's the SEMAS. The All Farmers Association they were represented by the president himself, Architect Kabiru Ibrahim. He was there himself, and other non-governmental agencies, including like HEDA. We had a virtual participation by our international or development partners like FAO, WFP, and the rest, and including farmers. Rural farmers were there, some of them that have benefited because we had partnered with IFAD project, like the CAPS project that just ended, the IFAD Life ND in the Niger Delta, the IFAD VCDP, they had good participation, and we had even from the WMO Secretary General was there virtually. So the participation was good, and it's quite encouraging that Nigerians are beginning to appreciate the relevance of weather and climate prediction in their day-to-day activities.
All right, thank you very much, Ijampi, James Adamu Ijampi, for the responses that you have given. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. And incidentally, Architect Kabiru, who was present at the launch of the season's climate prediction, is right here with us in the studios, President of Farmers Association. But let's bring in first Engineer Clemens. Engineer Clemens, well, you would say that this is not the flood outlook just yet, but what does the seasonal climate prediction foretell?
Thank you, Kingsley. NIMET and NISA are very close sister agencies in terms of the operations. After people have already, do ask, what's the distinction between the two agencies? Loosely speaking, people, you have to make them to understand that why NIMET mostly is concerned with atmospheric issues and also partly issues that happen on the ground, like they talk about soil moisture content and so on. The hydrological agency, we are concerned with the surface and groundwater all over the country. Now, I was there with other staff of my agency during the presentation about 2 days ago. We have some takeaways from their prediction, what they presented to us. Precipitation, humidity, temperature, which they predict, are very strong components or parameters that help us to come up with the flood outlook. For instance, when you talk about having a shorter period of rainfall in a year like the DG NIMET mentioned, it starts to give us impression. It gives us, makes us to understand that you are likely to have heavy amount of rainfall within a shorter period of time. And the earth that, so to say, takes up this rain, precipitation, when in the case of the ground, could be choked like a child you are trying to give a cam to drink or water to drink. There's a way you try to force it. I think we had an ugly experience sometime in the US where a woman was using the method she knows to feed a child. The child got suffocated and died. So when there's a shorter period of rainfall, the amount might be so high that it will generate a heavy runoff. The rivers will be overwhelmed. The normal dry channels that convey runoff may be overwhelmed. Then the banks, the two sides of the rivers or the channels will be overwhelmed too. So we have that's one of our takeaways. And then the onset, like he mentioned, maybe normal to above normal, like he may explain better. They know that one better than we do, maybe. When you talk about normal, above normal, you're talking about an average of about maybe 30 years type of rainfall you have been having. That what you're going to have this year may not deviate much from what you have had in the past 30 to 40 years or even 20. So we have a lot to go from what they have spoken, what they have released, and we expect that maybe in maybe 2 months' time, maximum, we go on air to let Nigerians know the implications of their prediction in conjunction with other parameters we use in doing our prediction.
The seasonal climate prediction is supposed to be a guide advisory for relevant agencies like yours. And from the prediction in 2022, it seems you have to hit the ground running. So what is the level of preparedness in your agency?
But it has got to advanced stage.
So you're already running?
Yes, we have begun working before the end of last year. What we are waiting for is the official statement from NIMET, which they released on the 15th. So now we'll go to work further to interrogate what I have said, vis-a-vis other conditions, talk about the geology of an environment, the river system, several things we have been measuring over the years. Like as we speak, our staff are there on the field gathering some data about each of the rivers, most of the rivers in Nigeria, especially the transboundary rivers, Niger and Benue. So it has gone to advanced stage.
What I'm trying to say is, you said in the next 2 months you come and make the public aware.
Yes.
It's February already, and some places have already started having rainfall, even if it's not heavy.
Okay.
So why should it take you so long to make people aware of the dangers of the prediction itself?
There are some technicalities I may not explain to the layman. We talk about hierarchical year. In Nigeria, the hierarchical year ends or starts from June. We are still in the 2021 hierarchical year. That's what we are. Okay. We are still operating now, 2020/2021 hierarchical year. By the end of May, we'll be talking about 2021-2022 hierarchical year in Nigeria. So there are implications this will have in our prediction that we can't rush just to go on air to maybe give you in March. But like you rightly mentioned, the advice they have released, there could be some rain drops anytime from now in several parts of Nigeria, but that doesn't indicate the onset of rainy season in any of the parts of Nigeria until the date they have mentioned, plus or minus maybe 5 days.
All right, Engineer, thank you very much. Of course, we also look forward to the flood outlook, which is what your report is about. Once the heavens begin to open up, Architect Kabir Ibrahim, let's bring you into the conversation right now. What are your takeaways from this year's predictions?
Well, the thing to do now is to appreciate that I was there physically. And last year, we had so many problems all over the place. Even though NIMET has tried to disseminate this information, the hydrological services also gave warnings and all that. We are present in 774 local governments and we sensitized our people. But to our chagrin, with the losses, especially in Katsina where I come from the Ministry of Agriculture, and that is the gazetted record, the losses by the farmers is in excess of 9 billion. Because some of them did not heed to the warning. And they planted in flood-prone areas. They planted late. They did not follow the rainfall pattern that was explained. So this year, what we did was to go there, look at everything in all its ramifications. And as I was invited, I now sent this to all our platforms, telling the farmers to watch on NTA and listen, see what the NIMET is saying. We are lucky the Hydrological Agency is also here. And probably there will be some questions, I don't know, but this is sine qua non to seed and to production. Because if you plant where there is no water, the seeds will not germinate. So the farmers ought to take this as the holy Bible of agriculture. So our takeaway is immense. It's prudent for us to abide by what NIMET says, for us to get out of poverty and then give Nigeria food sufficiency before we even start talking of food security. So it is very, very vital that we participate and we embrace everything that they have said. I was pleasantly surprised that no governor was there. One governor at least by himself should be there. It would motivate many people to be there. The Minister of Agriculture, if I was the Minister of Agriculture, I would have been there. But I saw a very respected representative, because this is very, very important to the work we are doing. Because for me, the synergy between NIMET and then aviation as a whole, transportation, road transportation, the Ministry of Water Resources, CBN, NALDA, everybody should coalesce to bring about food sufficiency in Nigeria. And therefore, every one of them should be in the same hall, in the same box with the farmers to be able to do that. I'm restricting these predictions to agriculture, but there are many cross-cutting issues that will affect agriculture and our welfare, you know, because even air transportation is going to be affected. Some of the things that perish are taken by air, especially now that we have AFTA. We should be able to produce something that will go out by air to other neighboring countries. Even florists go to as far as Dubai from Nairobi, Kenya, by air. So if there are predictions as to weather and all that, they will not now bring their flowers and they will dry up before they fly because of inclement weather. So it's a gamut of many things, and we need to work very hard to appreciate exactly the effect of all these things on us. But our well-being depends on weather forecasts. In other climes, everybody, you have it at the palm of your hand. Before you even travel by road or go anywhere, you have to know what the weather portends. Now, because our weather is not very harsh, we take it for granted.
Yes, because our weather is predictable. We know when the seasons come in. You said something that sort of struck a chord. They do not heed to, you know, warnings. Would we attribute it to low education or low awareness? Since you said the relevant agencies from the states were not at the event itself. So how are they supposed to educate and make their farmers aware that they need to take advice from NIMET?
No,
before they plant?
Let me fixate this. I didn't say the relevant agencies. I said the motivation by the presence of a governor and a highly placed person will make people pay attention to it. But clearly, there were many directors. All the people who were really doing the nitty-gritty were there. Okay. But what is missing, and everybody is to blame, the NIMET comes out with this, and they have made tremendous effort in information dissemination. For me and for AFAN, I think we should, from this year, create a desk for dissemination, this kind of information, more to our farmers, in conjunction or in addition to what is being done by NIMET and other people. So because it's a very serious business. You see, why I mentioned Katsina State is this. We have this threat of insecurity that prevents some people from some parts from going to the farm. Then you have the devastation caused by lack of adherence to the advice of NIMET. So the total food basket will suffer, because in some places we can't go to the farms even if we have abided by all the advice and all that, and we have worked assiduously. In some other parts, because of the nature of things, this is an act of God, we are not able to produce optimally. Then the sum total of our welfare is affected. And this model is true for every state in Nigeria. So these are the facts that I want to bring out. I'm not saying that people did not come. They were there. I mean, if a permanent secretary or an SA goes from a state government, he will definitely take back this information and this will. But the presence of a governor will motivate many people to pay attention to what we are doing. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you're talking about the optics. To say, look, what kind of signaling would that mean for the seriousness that is attached, therefore, to the seasonal climate predictions? Particularly for agriculture, this is important because largely it's still rain-fed agricultural practices that we have. Now, on Good Morning Nigeria over the years, we have always taking on this subject matter along, of course, with the flood outlook, or when the flood begins to cause some havoc in different parts of, or some parts of the country. In terms of cascading the critical information embedded in the predictions, where do you think the challenge lies? Because some years ago we were told that, oh, the NIMET made its predictions and transmitted copies to state governments and other agencies, and of course the outcome was that they got those documents and just kept them under the drawer. And when the consequences started unfolding, everyone was running helter-skelter. So what do you think we can do through organized entities to cascade the information relevant to their activities?
There are many reasons why we must take this thing seriously and implement it, embrace what is happening, because the whole problem of food is existential. Every day I go to programs and people talk of scarcity of food or skyrocketing prices of food. This is for agriculture. If there is anything to mitigate that anyone is proposing, it is best embraced wholly by all stakeholders. Now, to that extent, I believe seeing is believing. I have suffered this loss because I didn't heed. It is coming now. I have no other choice than to do it because the matter is existential. So to me, I think what we are doing even now, and the desk I said we would create, and the advice that the hydrological agency will give on flooding and all that, will be listened to with rapt attention, and it will be implemented. And we are forced by necessity to really do this. And we should even seek out this. You know, the Minister of Information said something and people didn't even listen. You know, in other climes, you pay for this information. It is given free of charge. NIMET is not, I don't know how they get their money. Maybe I will just go around and make some from them. I know that we should pay for this. I mean, we want to look at agriculture as a business. And if the components of making my business thrive include listening to advice of NIMET, and I should pay for it and factor it in my production. This is what should do. I mean, a sane society and serious people should do that. So I believe that our farmers will do this because, you know, we have a large contingent of people who farm for subsistence. If you don't have enough food, you go to the market and the food there is very expensive and you have no money. What is your choice? Your choice is to do it well and to listen to the advice that people give. So this will be cascaded to the grassroots from here to every state, to every local government, and to every ward, and to even every household.
I don't know. It raises the issue of extension services. Some noise was made a couple of years ago. Oh, yeah, we're going to employ extension workers to interact with farmers and talk to them about seeds and seedlings and cultivation and some of these things, including dealing with pests and diseases. Are we getting it right now with extension services? You
see, it's pedestrian to think that with this day of information super highway, you need to get people to go to these nooks and crannies to do this. You are to deploy digital technology, digital extension, green digital extension. And there are many, even yesterday I attended a seed information systems meeting. So you can get it on your telephone. Even this what NIMET did, I think there was a demonstration that there is an app now. There you can just get this information on your telephone. So, I mean, the world has gone...
For the subsistence farmer?
You see, what it is this. If you have a local government system, for instance, that works, there is an agri desk in the local government. That should be responsible.
That's right.
They should be functional, yes. Everybody, look, you see, what we fail to understand is that I was invited here for Good Morning Nigeria. You were here. So if you came late, if you or Jumai came late, would the program be effective? You need to be here. So in NTA, people keep to time, and you do what you have to do. So everywhere else, we should do the same. This is the way to go. I mean, you cannot develop your nation by being lackadaisical about things. You must be hands-on in everything. It is no excuse that I am from Faskari and I don't speak English. I will not understand what everybody is saying. So if I hear what you are saying, I will go to my people and tell them in the language they will understand. This is why I told you we have platforms for agriculture in every part of Nigeria. If I go to your village and I speak English, probably not, very few people will understand me. But if the person I'm giving information to disseminate to your people speaks in the language that most people understand, I think it will be there. So I'm not going to hide behind people don't have phones, people don't speak English or German to say that, no, this information will not go. Information will go.
Okay, let's bring in Mr. James Adamu. Tell us about the app and what does it intend to achieve?
Thank you. The idea of the app came up last year as a result of our downscaling experience. We've been going down to the grassroots to get them trained on how to use the seasonal climate prediction. And it is quite, I'm quite glad that most of the farmers, our perception of our rural farmers, they are quite intelligent, because when we did some demonstration with them, we understood that one or two, they have lead farmers, and within a community, you may have one or two people that have Android phones. So that was why the DG, Professor Mansour Matazu, now asked NIMED that we should develop an app that this, as architect Kabira said, the information highway is there. This information should get to them on real time. Not just the seasonal climate prediction, but we have the daily forecast, the weekly outlooks for their decision. And also, we are still looking at a possibility, as the President of Farmers Association has said, some farmers don't have Android. How do we get a simple SMS code that they will get this information? We are looking at, my DG is looking at ways that we can explore, because this thing costs a lot, and NIMET is doing this out of its revenue, little revenue it generates from aviation. So we're looking at other ways that we partner with bigger companies, so that we can get this as their corporate responsibility, so that our rural farmers can get these things even on SMS. But the idea of the Android came as a result of our interaction via downscaling to farmers and the need for this information to get to them on time.
Ijampi, you know, some days ago, the world celebrated World Radio Day. And radio remains worldwide the most utilized medium for mass communication. And what you are getting into, I'm just wondering, when we say we want to cascade down, so that you don't begin to bite more than you can chew as NIMET. And that's why we've been asking about the presence or collaboration of other stakeholders, including state governments. And Architect Ibrahim was prescribing what local governments should be and how they should work. Unfortunately, that is not the reality that we face. So if you are now having to go to the grassroots yourself to disseminate the information, I'm sure that going forward, state and local governments will just abandon you to say, oh, NIMET, they have come. They will, after prediction, they will go and disseminate the information. How do you get state governments and local governments and even the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Environment and others to be involved in all of this, so that you can have a collaboration that helps disseminate the information for utility in the areas of need?
Okay, for the Ministry of Agriculture, we are working with the Department of Land Resources and Climate Change, and through their projects, like the Appeals Project, even the IFAD is FGN domicile under the Ministry of Agriculture. So they give us this vehicle and lead into the states. And some state governments, like Katsina State some years back, we were able to to reach out to them through the state government, where we went there to the state to downscale. We've received letters from communication from Lagos and Oyo State just yesterday, inviting NIMET to work with their ADPs just so that we can reach out. And I'm glad that the All Farmers Association is here. They are here and talking about having a DEX officer. So when we have them give this information, I'm sure they will get this information to the 774 local governments in Nigeria. So NIMET is open to partnership because we don't have the resources to go to this local government, but we rely on partnership to get to, we were using the NRLS helpline because they are supposed to have a radio time slot. And also the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, had given us a platform to collaborate with the News Agency of Nigeria and Radio Nigeria so that this information can get to the SCP can get a wider coverage. And NIMET is appreciative of this.
Okay, we'll get back to you in the course of the conversation. Let's bring in Mr. Clement Nze. It's a known fact that water will always find its course. And year in, year out, you go out there to enlighten people, building houses on the riverbanks to prevent flooding. How can you, would you say that in conjunction or in collaboration with other relevant agencies, you might this year be able to take some decisive and proactive actions against this?
Well, this year, 2022, we are coming up with some innovations that we give more flesh to what we are doing. That apart from this annual flood outlook, which gives you what is likely to happen in the course of the year. And when we say outlook, it's a working document that you can use to take some decisions. After the annual flood outlook for 2022, we want to now zero in to other things to do, like we'll break it down. That maybe for the month of April and June, we can tell you these are the things that will happen within this period, as against giving you a one-off prediction for the year. The heat of flooding in Nigeria is usually from July to September, maybe middle of October. So we are going to now segregate it in this pattern that after giving the annual flood outlook, we begin to segment it. Also based on the reality of the weather. But certain things cannot be predicted. Like NIMET, we'll give you maybe 10 days. Maybe temperature or humidity. Because if you can't predict for a long time, there could be certain things that will change it without that's outside their own control. We have factored this in that for the year 2022, after the annual flood outlook is given, we will now segment it into 3 up to the month of October, which is the climax of flooding in Nigeria. Now, we have people that we partner with. NIMET is one of them, NEMA, and then the state SEMAs. We go to them through NEMA. We intend to intensify more efforts in this regard. The Honorable Minister of Water Resources has always worked assiduously to ensure that the front-line states in Nigeria, there are states that are really prone to flooding, that efforts or this information is gotten to them, sent to them quite early enough. Like maybe in your earlier question you asked when I spoke first. You don't expect flooding in Nigeria anywhere, even up to the month of March, April. You're talking about our preparedness, when are we coming out? The soil is dry. Yes, even though somebody told me some time ago that in the Niger Delta, they have only wet season and rainy season. They don't have dry season. But we know that it will take quite some rainy, some days or months of rainfall before the ground could be saturated to generate a runoff that will cause flooding. So we will intensify our own efforts in terms of warning the people, especially the government, but like what I've been inferred in what I've been said here so far. We can't be everywhere. When we give information to the state governors. Each of the state governments in Nigeria has relevant agencies that deal with what we are saying. It is expected that the such information should be given to them, Minister of Environment, Minister of National Town Planning Authorities in their states. You mentioned the issue of the building within the waterways or very close proximity to the river banks. They are supposed to work together. At the federal level, so much work is being done, where you have the forecasting operating agencies at the federal level. No state government in Nigeria is doing anything like prediction, whether weather or flood and so on and so forth. But when we give our information, we expect that the state governments that are closer to the people should run with it and do the needful.
All right, Engineer, thank you very much for your explanation. State governments are not doing anything about climate prediction or weather prediction because meteorology is on the exclusive legislative list of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Gentlemen, we're going to have to take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation. All right, you're welcome back and you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on NTA's network service. All our three guests are still with us as we discuss the 2022 seasonal climate predictions issued by NIMET just a couple of days ago. And as the guests have indicated, these predictions have broad-ranging implications, not just on our rain-fed agriculture, but also aviation, more particularly health, as James Ijampi, who is the chief meteorologist, has indicated to us. But Mr. Ijampi, I would like us to take a step back. Last year, we had the predictions. The year before, we had the predictions. And indeed, each year, we have the predictions. Have you undertaken a review of the predictions for 2021 or 2020? How close were you to the mark? How far off were you from the mark? And probably what went right, what went wrong?
Thank you. Every year, after the prediction, around October, we do an evaluation of the prediction. And in the document, it is contained in the document where we evaluate the onset, the performance of the prediction. And over the years, we've been having like 70, 80% performance skill, high skill. And it helps us to recalibrate the model because there are areas year in, year out we underperform. We now take a look, why are we underperforming? And we look at the various atmospheric or modulators to see why that particular location we are underperforming, and it has been improving. So for this year, I think the skill has improved to about 86% overall, talking about the onset, cessation, and length of season and rainfall amount. And in 2021, the Honorable Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, commissioned us to do an evaluation of the last 5 years in terms of the performance of the SCP as it affects productivity in Nigeria. That document it has been done, and I won't speak to it until it is formally presented to the public. And there we even look at how do rural dwellers and farmers prefer getting this information, and we see that 75% wants it via radio. Then next is SMS. So we have been looking at some of those indicators in terms of communication, in terms of performance of the parameters, and it helps us to recalibrate the model for a better focus, because you can't get it 100%, but you try as much as possible to tweak the model to see why you are the reasons you are having challenges. For example, Nigeria is large, and because of the insecurity, we don't have weather stations in some of these areas, or some of those areas, and they have been vandalized. So we have to rely on other sources to complement what we have, and to see that we give Nigerians a better focus.
This is part of Juma, critical national infrastructure. I mean, and it's not out of place to suggest, for instance, that some of these vendors who have no value, either for themselves or for critical national infrastructure, may not even understand what they are looking at or what they are vandalizing. So the question there would be, how well resourced are you to continue to perform your very critical function? If I talk about resources, men, women, and material.
Now, the infrastructure level, based on insecurity and vandals, particularly the automatic weather station where you have solar batteries and things like that. Some of these things are vandalized, and we now complement with satellite information, because that is the best way we can complement areas where we have insecurity and areas where we have vandals. So we rely on, so now NIMET is using some high-resolution satellite data for rainfall and temperature for long-term data to complement what we have on ground. And we are partnering with institutions so that they can house some of our equipment, providing security to those equipment. We cannot be everywhere. That's why we have automatic weather station. However, we need some form of security, and we partner with universities so that they can house and protect this equipment. But you see, most of these institutions are in the urban areas. We need some of this equipment in the rural areas as well. So we're partnering with some community, like the farmer clusters. We have some clusters that have agreed to provide some level of security to some of our equipment, and we establish within their locality so that they take ownership of this equipment. That is what we're doing right now.
And you know, you're working in conjunction with some relevant agencies. Let's bring in Architect Ibrahim. You clearly raised the point about the use of radio in communicating to people way down the line into the rural areas. And with this prediction, how can farmers in the rural areas be able to navigate themselves around this prediction? Will you be, what kind of channel of communication, apart from the Android phone and the app itself, how are you going to use the radio? Because I knew, growing up as a child, I used to listen to agricultural programs on radio, Noma Tushin Aziki, and so are we going back to that?
Of course, this is absolutely necessary, and not even only farmers who do crop or agronomy, even the people who tend to cows and all that, listen to radio. In fact, it's their biggest friend. Most people in Nigeria, especially in the rural communities, listen to radios. So once this information is on radio, and I'm glad that the Minister of Information has graciously agreed that the Voice of Nigeria and all other sectors there.
Are you thinking along the line of getting your own channel?
Now,
a radio channel?
Now, that is something that I think is work in progress. Even the telephone thing, I don't want to talk about the MOA we signed with Afrideco, that there will be farmers' helpline. Information will get to the farmers through phones that they will be given free of charge. We have money now in the CBN given by the World Bank that is supposed to capture the data of all farmers in Nigeria free of charge to the farmers. And along with it, there will be this telephony. The people will simply get phones free of charge and all that. But this is work in progress. If you recall that a lot of, we are working in silos. You remember that about last year and part of 2020, there was this issue of farmers' data capture, and a lot of money was put in there, 2.7. We talked about it. We said it was a waste of time. And we were told that they had captured about 6 million farmers. Where is the data? Where do you really keep this data? Where is the vehicle to keep the data? So, but farmers' data capture, just like our population, is work in progress. But it is important for us to have a radio channel. This is the farmers' radio channel. It is even important for the farmers to have a piece of the action of our own bank. You know, the BOA and whatever, it's supposed to be sold, the equity is supposed to be sold to the farmers so that it's our own bank. If you look at Rabobank in the Netherlands, it is principally owned by the farmers. So a lot of these things have to be synergized. We must work together. The Federal Ministry of Information, I'm sure, is thinking and working with us to be able to evolve many, many other ways of disseminating information via their media possibilities. So we, as farmers, we are doing our own best, but everybody should do and help to do the same as we are doing, because our activities affect everyone.
That's right.
You will not be here. I see you yawning. You are trying to go and eat. And if we don't produce food, you will not eat. So everybody, even including the president of this country, has to eat. So everybody has to really work towards helping the farmers to be able to produce optimally. And getting information on weather, on climate, on hydrology and all that, they are very, very crucial to the work we do.
Gentlemen, I mean, as we are discussing this, it's getting more interesting. But I think that it may be probably helpful going down the road not to expect the federal government to be the principal driver of this information dissemination. There is no state in this country without a state radio station. There is no state in this country today without private radio stations. We're not even talking about television. So it boils down to simple programming. Simple programming. If you consider this valuable, then you create the program for it. Whether you are a private station, which is FM usually, and the range is limited, but of course mostly listen to, whether you are a state-owned station, and of course the federal stations will also complement, because there's also no state in this country where you don't have a station owned by the federal government. That was part of, that's FRCN, part of the expansion program, but it has to be holistic, so that as you are moving on your radio dial, you can at some point get across this information. But before all of that starts, I'm just wondering, Jampi and architect Kabiru, and to an extent Clement Nze, is it possible to say that as you make your annual climate predictions, such as for this year, you do it here in Abuja, and then you create, as it were, a ceremony, so that the farmers will know that, look, sometime in January or February, they are going to gather us, and they are going to tell us about what to do, what not to do. But now they've given information. That will be the responsibility of state governments, responsibility of local governments. You create an event in the various farming communities. The village head could be the one to say, look, what we have heard from Abuja, this is what they have said. Oh, you remember last year we lost our crops, X, Y, Z. Is that a feasibility?
Very much so. And I think NIMET, I saw the invitations they sent out. They included traditional rulers and everybody. And they even had some farmers to give testimony of what they have experienced. And these people will definitely go back and tell a story, a very good story, that they were there, they talked, they spoke in the middle of a very large crowd with ministers and all that. And therefore, all the people who came from the states will go back to their states, inform their state governments, and inform the people. And they can do this in town halls. They can do this everywhere else to be able to disseminate this information. Because, look, this information, as I told you, the SA on agriculture in Katsina State was there. He represented the governor. He had a small booklet cataloging everything that they have been through in 2021, the losses. He put the loss at about 10 billion, but I am in Katsina. I know exactly what is happening there. There are many, many things that I am doing there that I am going to transfer here, because people there are really impoverished. They cannot afford what we do. So it's crucial for every state to make sure that this information goes to the grassroots. And as you said, and I will buy it, and I recommend everybody to do it, that you should have satellites in all states where this kind of information is disseminated. All the farmers have to be told this, you should ram it through their ears and all that. You listen to this because we are interested and we are affected.
Jampi, okay. Briefly, your final thoughts, briefly, 30 seconds.
That we are here again this year. It doesn't all go well for us as agencies. You predict, you go on air, you speak. At times you pay airtime some places to speak, which I doubt whether it is so in other developed climes, having this kind of gathering to talk to the people. So we appeal to the state governments to kindly heed to the predictions. Make it something very serious. We have all the agencies under you, ministries under you, and let this be cascaded to the local government areas. It's a very serious matter. Let the state do their own part as the federal is doing what we are doing even right now. Let the state be part of it.
Okay. Mr. Jampi, your final thoughts, 30 seconds.
Thank you. I want us, NIMET and NISA, we are the producers of this, of the weather information in Nigeria, and we need enablers, people that will take this information to the grassroots, particularly states and private media house. It is important to know that even the world news is notable events, weather and sports. We take away the weather and keep the notable events and sports. So weather is a component of news, and I'm sure we should appeal to our media houses to take this seriously, as enable us to take this information to the grassroots.
James Adamo Ijampi, Chief Meteorologist at NIMET, would like to thank you for being part of our discussion this morning. Engineer Clement Nze, Director General, Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, NISA, always a delight having you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
And Architect Kabir Ibrahim, President of Farmers Association of Nigeria, Alfan, big thanks for your contribution to the discussion, and always a delight to have you around.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so that does it for our discussion segment. Let's go over now to the foreign scene.
Amnesty International has accused Tigrayan fighters of deliberately killing civilians and gang-raping dozens of women and underage girls in 2 towns in Ethiopia's Amhara region last year. The international watchdog says the latest example of the horrific toll exacted by the 15-month war. The rights watchdog interviewed 30 rape survivors, some as young as 14, and other victims of violence to draw a picture of the atrocities in China and Kobo in August and September after rebels from the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, seized control of the towns. Nearly half of the victims of sexual violence said they were gang-raped, with doctors telling Amnesty International that some survivors had suffered lacerations likely caused by rifle bayonets being inserted into their genitals. A 14-year-old schoolgirl told the rights group she and her mother were both raped by the TPLF fighters, who said that attacks were a revenge for atrocities committed against their own families. Now to Europe. The United States and NATO have said Russia is still building up troops around Ukraine despite Moscow's insistence it was pulling back, and this questions President Vladimir Putin's stated desire to negotiate a solution to the crisis. In Ukraine, where people raised flags and played the national anthem to show unity against fears of an invasion, the government said cyber attack that hit the defense ministry was the worst of its kind the country had seen. It pointed a finger at Russia, which denies involvement. Russia's defense ministry said its forces, part of a huge build-up that has been accompanied by demands to the West for sweeping security guarantees, were pulling back after exercises in southern and western military districts near Ukraine.
Have always moved forces back and forth. Just that we see movement of forces, so battle tanks doesn't confirm a real withdrawal. It has been a bit up and down, back and forth all the way, but the trend of the last weeks and months has been a steady increase in the Russian capabilities close to Ukraine's borders. Russia retains the capability of a full-fledged invasion of Ukraine.
That's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Join us again tomorrow for another edition. I am Jummai Yusuf.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola, wishing you the best for the rest of the day.